light on to,
yeah,
otherwise it's too dull. So to get the proper beauty of the crystal, sometimes it's nice to do a nighttime live and have the camera on because you see a different aspect of the
yeah.
crystals. I've even done one in like a dusk light because some of the moonstones show better in that kind
Okay.
of light. So it depends. And rocks and minerals are very, very time dependent in what they will show themselves best off. I mean, the quartzes love the sunlight,
Yeah,
absolute door light, right? And they will bounce off the light beautifully. So it's disclosing. It's about being completely transparent about the piece that they're getting in regards
yeah,
to you are selling crystals and rocks and they're not perfect. Yeah,
mm,
you get really good cuts, really good specimens, but 90% of what hits the metaphysical market tends to be a lower grade, or the higher grades do tend to be a higher price, obviously. But that
yeah,
was the other thing I wanted about the ethos of my shop was I didn't ever want to be able to price out of people's price range. So I always bear in mind of what would I be happy to pay for it if I was
yeah,
a consumer. So I've been criticized before that my prices are too low. Personally, I think they're more than fairly priced, knowing the market and how much
hmm,
things are selling for. And I do source from many different suppliers. I've got loads of different suppliers now. I don't just stick to one, I go to several all around the world now as well. So,
yeah.
what I
Yeah, I
get, I
mean,
reflect. So if I get a good
exactly. I mean,
price,
with the prices, as long as it's yeah, as long as you're happy with the profit that you make, it
exactly.
makes no difference. And yeah, so the people that are telling you you're doing them too cheap are the ones you're probably undercutting.
Probably. But that's why my customers come back time and time again. They get fantastic quality crystals at fantastic prices from somebody that they can trust because I never said
Yeah,
what you see is the piece you get as well.
yeah,
So I don't go, oh yeah, I'm Green Adventure on Point and I've got 5 and I just pick the crappiest one and send that. No, the
mm,
piece you choose is the piece you get. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So, and I do it. So I love it. I love crystals and minerals. I have to say, it's like my favorite thing in the whole wide world. They never let me down.
mm, yeah. No, and I find it quite amazing sometimes when you're showing the labradorite pieces that
It's
you
beautiful.
get, and they're dull as anything, and the second you pick them up, they're like, "Oh, hello!" and they all
They
and
wake
the
up.
flashes and stuff. Yeah, I think it's
They
quite
wake up.
amazing.
And
Yeah.
particularly with like the moonstone, which is very it is very linked to energy.
Hmm.
Um, You've seen before as well, like I'll pick a piece up and it's not flashing blue at all. And
Yeah,
then I give it a little rub, I give it a little talk to, and then all of a sudden it'll just wake up in my hand. And I
yeah,
could have shown that same angle 20 times before and it wouldn't do it. And then
yeah,
it will wake up in my hand. And the labradorite is very much similar to that on the darker side. And
mm,
it'll be like, oh God, come on, wakey, wakey. It's like when I get them out the box straight from the supplier, they are not awake, they are dormant.
yeah,
And I'll be like, oh God, they're not flashy at all. And, obviously with crystals like that, the flash or the Schiller effect, it's called,
hmm,
is the selling point of that particular crystal.
yeah,
So I'm thinking, God, if I've not got a flashy one, it's going to sit on my shelf for years. Do you know what I
mm,
mean? But then all of a sudden, as it's sitting there in front of me and I'm working, through the delivery and whatnot, it'll gradually start to wake up and then it's off. And it's just brilliant. It's just brilliant to
yeah.
witness it. It's brilliant to witness it. Forget being energetically attuned to it. It's just brilliant to witness it.
Mm. You say you work with them as well. What sort of things do you do?
I do a technique called crystal gridding,
Mm,
which I use in regard to manifestation work, or if I want to achieve a result, or if I'm just giving gratitude, or, I use crystal gridding quite extensively in ritual work and that sort of thing. So when you work with crystals, that's one of the techniques you can use is crystal gridding, which is basically building a geometrical pattern with a variety of crystals that are set to the specific intention that you want. And it's your signal to the universe that that is what you're trying to achieve and that's what you want to happen. And it's a manifestation technique, basically.
Okay.
So that's how I use a lot of crystals and minerals.
Is that what? Well, is that what you did when you got your electricity bill back or whatever it was?
I didn't know about it then. I just was like, thank you.
Yeah.
I did it that way instead. So I did.
Excellent. I think that Facebook user, I would assume it would be Emma because she says she's sitting in cold Spain.
Yes, that must be our Emma.
Yeah, well, I'm sitting in Atherstone next to the radiator, so I'm nice and warm.
And I'm sitting in Canvey Island next to a radiator. Nice.
Exactly. But no strawberry cheesecake.
Just a good old blighty cup of tea.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, so going on from Spirit and Soul, you said you started an academy.
How
did that one come about?
I knew I was going to go into more of a teaching role.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of knew it was coming. And I should have done it a long time ago.
Okay.
To be fair. But we had taken a break from the concept show.
Yeah.
And it sort of gave me the mind space to go, right, okay, how do I want to move forward? Basically, with what I want to do. Do I want to do podcasting? Because we've done podcasting for a lot of years, haven't we, Paul?
We have, yeah.
And I felt like that wasn't whatever I do in terms of this side of my life has to be fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And the concept show got to a point where, and I think Paul would admit this too, it wasn't fulfilling.
Yeah.
It sort of got to a point where it just felt laborious. So we took a break from that basically to recalibrate and find how all of us individually, because Richard was involved in this too, how we was going to move forward, whether we were going to move forward with the concept show or not. So throughout that break, I took time. I thought, right, okay, what is it I want to do? How do I want to move forward? And I didn't want to give it up, but I also didn't want to have the pressure of it being a weekly show.
Yeah.
But I knew I needed an outlet for my spirituality beyond just selling. Do you know what I mean? Because there is so much knowledge, and it was only I mentored one of my customers. Basically, she'd asked if I'd do some mentoring sessions with her, which I did offer out into the selling group. And it was whilst I was doing the mentoring with her, I was like thinking, okay, this feels like it's like my training ground. It feels like this is a training ground, not just for her, but for me. It felt like a very energetic exchange on this one. So to then put it out into the wider field, sort of like was a really good idea. And then we had a convergence of Gemma coming back into my life.
Yep.
For a completely different reason. But I always worked very well with Gemma. And, you know, when we first started talking again, then I did her a card read and that came, that was validated. And, she was like, oh my God, and stuff like this. So she stepped onto a spiritual pathway, which was something she'd not really embraced before. She was always quite skeptical before. Yeah. And I felt like actually this is like the perfect timing because I'm very good, but I always need somebody to bounce off of. That's just how I like to work. So to actually have somebody who's completely new and I can teach them, but sort of like put it out.
Yeah.
And she's very good at questioning as well. So what if I'd done a workshop, she's bringing up questions that I wouldn't necessarily have thought of because I've been doing it for so many years. So that the balance of that actually is incredible. And the journey she's had in literally the last, I've been working with her now for 6 months. We launched I launched the academy in November and she's been with me, but she obviously a couple of months before that we were working. So that was sort of like the perfect balance to go forward in the perfect partner, I suppose you would call it, to go forward into the academy. So it just felt like the right time with the right people in the right place and the right meld. It just felt good, and it felt the right time. So that's really where it went. Now, I mean, and no, I could do it on my own, but I always like doing it with somebody. Like I like doing the paranormal concept show. We went back to doing the concept show. We've got back to doing it once a month, and that feels like a nice balance with that. So I don't feel like I've lost that paranormal link, as it were.
It's running quite smoothly as well, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, it's quite a nice balance in now, because I didn't want to lose it, but I didn't want the pressure of once a week.
Yeah.
So to go into once a month does sort of, and it's both of us now, really. We're both of us things, but we needed to do that evolvement. We needed that realignment. We needed to recalibrate at the time.
Give ourselves chances for other projects to come in as well.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what that breathing space did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then Mysterious Worlds was born.
Yeah, you went away and did your jewellery and Mysterious Worlds, and I did the Academy and Spirit and Soul Island crystals, and
cool.
Life is busy but good.
Absolutely. So, who picks the subjects you cover in your academy?
It's all me.
Okay. And how do you come to that conclusion? Is it just a progression of different things, or is it just randomly?
It's spirit led, to be fair, because like throughout the month we'll cover Crystal of the Month.
Yeah.
We do Tarot of the Month. We do Folklore of the Month. We do Animal Totem of the Month. These are all articles that they get. Then we do New Moon meditation, not meditation, ritual work. So it's the ritual work is learning how to do it.
Yeah.
We do the full moon manifestation. So you get manifestations going on and how to use your tools you've got. There's the crystal grid a month. So I will walk through building a grid that I'm working on, whether that's for me or for a client, and show the progression of that and how to build it and how to charge it and do all that sort of stuff. So they get that information, and it's all about learning. Knowledge is power in regard to spiritual work, because spirit are not always clear cut in regard to how they give you the message. They'll bring it in signs, symbols. They'll bring it in synchronicities and coincidences. They'll bring it through in lots and lots of different ways. And it's down to you to decipher that message that's relevant for you to give. Yeah, whether that's for yourself, whether it's for whatever, if you're on the right pathway, give me a sign. How to interact with that energy to get those kind of validations for yourself, and how it all connects, how every single thing in this universe is interconnected. And you can only do that through knowledge, which is something I've got. Do you know what I mean? Which I'm able to give. So in regards to the topics, I very much get led by using the tarot, because tarot comes into it and oracle decks come into it a lot. So I don't go, oh, what crystal do I fancy this month? You know what I mean? It's like, let's pull a card. What card is the card telling me? What's it saying? What crystal is relevant? And that's how Crystal of the Month comes around. Tarot card, I'll keep shuffling until one flies out, and then that's the card of the month. The same with the spirit animal oracles. You know what I mean? I'll use varying decks for this as well. Folklore will be relevant as to what's something that's gone on in the month. So if something comes up, like last month we had, I was involved in a death. Unfortunately, I didn't murder anybody. It just happened, and a family friend, their father passed, and so we covered the impact of that in regard to your spiritual practice, in regards to your belief system regarding, how do you view it? How do you help somebody in that situation from an energetic, spiritual perspective as much as a personal perspective? And obviously then Charon came through, or Sharon, which is the ferryman. The ferryman. So that was Folklore of the Month. So that's where that came through from. The first ever one we did was Chiron, which is the healer. At the moment, it feels very Greek based, actually, with the folklore. We quite a lot. We've dealt with the fates, we've talked about higher selves. We've talked about so much stuff. And if the Academy members, because it's interactive, it's not just me sitting there going, whoa, 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 whoa. It's very interactive, and they love